My name is Troy Styles, Troystyles, with Blunt Force Media. We have been the media representation for the family since this case began. We're 54 days into this investigation. Mr. Dumas originally was reported missing shortly after he was noticed by his family to be missing, which was completely out of character. You have to keep in mind that when these situations happen, you're asking a total stranger to find someone that they do not know. And this family was very quick in their actions and their notice, and they have had to be contained for 54 days while investigators have done work on this case, and they have relied very heavily on investigators to do that work. Every tip that has come in has been handed to investigators within minutes, without receipt. We've not had even confirmation that they're receiving tips as they've been handed to them. We deployed a specialized hotline in this case. We have, connected our tip line as well as, handing out flyers all over Huntsville, and shared investigators' phone number and email in all of our flyers as well. And we're thankful to the community and to people who have stepped up with information in this case. We have just found out just moments ago that this active missing persons investigation has now been upgraded to an active abduction investigation. That information comes from Huntsville Police Department, who's issued a press release today, and we'll continue to let them speak as to the details of their investigation. Our reason for being here today is very much to thank the community for their support and for their notice of this case, and the media in this town. Every town has its own legacy media market, and I will say that Huntsville has an amazing group of press journalists that have kept after this case. You all have embraced this family, and most of all, you've been respectful of them, which, they need you a lot, and, it's appreciated, all the work that's gone into this, just from everyone involved. Huntsville Police Department has worked alongside the U.S. Marshals Task Force, Memphis Police Department, the DeSoto County Sheriff's Office, Southeastern Search Dogs, and others. But the family obtained their own private investigator in this case early on, and that has been instrumental in where we are today, I believe. We are thankful for all the agencies involved, including ALEA. So many people have worked on this case, but there has been a lot of issues that we'll speak on as well. We do have a $10,000 reward in this case, and we are keeping that active, but we're putting a deadline on it, because while we are satisfied that there are warrants and we're very much looking for justice, the family's just not able to move to that position. Mr. Dumas has 3 children, and Christmas morning, what they noticed was their father not there. And every day this family has called and they have begged investigators not to solve this case, but just to believe them, to even act like they were solving it. And today is the first day of affirmation after 54 days. The first indication that they were doing that. And while investigators must keep those details private to the investigation, they're to protect the investigation as well as the prosecution. The family understands that. We all do. But behind closed doors, there have been threats made to the family and an immense amount of agony and pressure induced by Huntsville Police Department specifically, and the investigator charged in charge of this case. I'm going to turn it over to Shakira Samples, who is the mother of Mr. Dumas. She has been the point of contact until HPD removed her and discontinued contact with her as the next of kin in this case, and she'll speak now.
My name is Shakira Samples, and I am the mother of Ronald's oldest child. I do want to start out by expressing gratitude to all the agencies involved: Huntsville Police Department, Memphis Police Department, the FBI, U.S. Marshals, Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, the media, and most importantly, the community. We appreciate your dedication, assistance, and attention throughout this investigation. For 54 days, we've searched for answers regarding the disappearance of Ronnie. While we wish we had located him by now, we remain without that closure. However, we have now received confirmation from the investigators that Ronnie was taken against his will. This long-awaited acknowledgement affirms what we have known from the beginning. As we've told the media, investigators, and everyone involved, he's a devoted father. He's ever present, and he would never walk away from his children. While law enforcement now has recognized the reality of this case, that foul play was not initially acknowledged, the family has been under immense pressure to remain silent about our concerns. But we have remained steadfast in our belief that the original stance of this investigation was incorrect. Today we stand validated. The Huntsville Police Department has obtained warrants in connection with this investigation. While this is a step toward justice, we cannot move forward in that process until Ronnie's children and the family receive the closure that we desperately need. We are still searching for him. Throughout this ordeal, Huntsville Police Department has repeatedly accused and threatened our family. Despite our insistence that this case was not one of voluntary disappearance, everything we told them from the beginning has now been proven to be correct. Ronnie would never abandon his children, ever. Earlier this week, we were informed that today would bring significant developments, and as anticipated, information was released at the last moment. This has been the pattern throughout the investigation. Now more than ever, we plead with the community to continue sharing tips and information. If you know anything, please call our hotline at 256-254-4240 or visit crimedesk.tips. On that website, you are able to submit tips anonymously as well, or contact Huntsville Police Department. Additionally, we want to acknowledge Magna Investigations, whom we have worked with since January 1st. Their contributions have been instrumental in pushing this case forward. We remain committed to finding Ronnie and bringing him home.
Thank you, Shakira. This is Talia Berryhill. She also is a mother to Mr. Dumas' children. This family has a very unique relationship, and how Mr. Dumas served as a father, and even though the dynamics are odd, they're all very close, and so this is a very cohesive relationship that they all have together. And so if you would like to speak about Ronnie at this time.
Again, my name is Talia Berryhill. I'm the mother of Ronnie's two daughters. As Shakira mentioned, Ronnie is big on family. We are all very close to one another. I know that's an unusual dynamic in today's society, but She's one of my best friends. And this has rocked us. And we really wish that we were taken seriously the first time. We want him home. If you know something, please say something to us. We need him back. We just want this to be over for our kids and for us. Our kids are crying.
Our hotline is open again at 256-254-4240. You can dial 0 and be connected straight to Huntsville Police Department's dispatch, or you can leave your message there. That goes directly to investigators immediately the moment you finish your message. You also can go to www.crimedesk.tips. That $10,000 reward will be attached to that hotline in crimedesk.tips. And that is valid until February 28th. On February 28th, we will reassess a new deadline date if we need to. But we are willing to pay $10,000, and that is for information leading to Ronnie's whereabouts. We do not have any indication as to whether Ronnie is alive or not, but we want him back regardless, and we will pay the $10,000 to whoever gives us that information. So we urge you to think about it and to give us the information if you have it. If you think you see him, we expect to work these tips as they come in. And then James is our private investigator. Do you have anything to say or comment as far as the investigation?
Like you said, I would just encourage anybody that knows where he's at to reach out. That's our number one priority right now, is finding Ronnie. Obviously, we don't have a hand in the prosecution of what goes on with that. We'll let the police handle that, but if we can just get Ronnie back, that's the biggest thing.
We'll take questions.
Before this started, you guys mentioned that you were just learning this new information. Can you maybe kind of talk about either, your thoughts on that, maybe disappointment, just now finding out about it through the media?
Yeah, it's been a big beg of Huntsville Police to share just simple information, little updates like we have no information at this time. That's good for us. We don't get that in this case. They threatened the family about releasing. The family obtained the video from that. Everybody has requested the video. The family's had that information for a long time. You have to give them a lot of credit for the restraint of holding that video and not releasing it, because they could have. And we did not do that because Huntsville Police asked us not to do that. We did release the image of Ronnie because we felt like the outfit that he was wearing was different than what they had initially told the media, and we felt like that was important information. But the families just had, considerable restraint throughout this entire process. They're very level-headed people. They're not asking for the case file to be completely opened. As far as today goes, I predicted on, I think, Monday when we knew that this press release was coming that we would get it close to the end of the day on Friday because that is their style and it has continued to be until 3:29 on Friday. We finally got the information. So, and how we got this information today was from the news website. So while we were awaiting the moment that we had scheduled to meet with reporters, the family went and reviewed all this information on the news media's website. They did not get it firsthand, which would have been the most respectful way to treat a family, especially the family of a victim, in an ongoing abduction investigation.
Can you say more about what kind of threats?
Yeah. They said if we released the video, they would not speak to the family again. And have you had that's when the
Yeah,
that's when the communication
and
stopped.
even though we didn't release the video, they followed through with that. I would say today's the first that I've had communication with the police department again.
Now, Mr. Dumas' next of kin would actually be his father, who is living. He has spoken to police one time, and
He hasn't spoken to them either.
Right, yeah, he called one time, left a message, and investigator Gibbs, Stephen Gibbs, which is the lead on this investigation, finally did return his call. It's the only time he's ever spoken to him. But he would be the next of kin and the contact if they needed to make drastic contact.
James, without compromising anything, can you share a little bit about your role in the investigation, what you were looking into and helping?
My initial goal when I reached out to the family was just to try to build a bridge. I'm formerly HPD. I know a lot of the guys in CID, so it was just kind of hoping to build a gap, a bridge on the communication side of things. Trying to make sure that the family understood that HPD's not going to be able to tell them every little detail of the investigation and stuff, but just try to, be able to talk to CID and maybe, be a go-between of ensuring the family that, hey, they are working on it. They got things that they're working on. They're not going to be able to tell us about, and things like that. Kind of as I saw that was not going to be an option as far as getting any feedback on how the investigation was going and stuff. We did start looking into it ourselves and going around and talking to people, obtaining the video from the liquor store and things like that. Had been able to identify a lot of these people. We'll say they're a name on that list that they just released the warrants on, that we were not familiar with, but we had been able to identify some of those folks that we knew were going to be involved. I think the family's biggest thing was just trying to get HPD to acknowledge that something's not right, that he did not just walk away. And so that's been the biggest, I think that and the communication's been the biggest aggravation. But no, I would say I was not successful in, building the bridge on the communication, and that was the biggest thing.
In a missing persons case, one of the most important things for police, I think there's a lot to be learned here on both sides. I don't think HPD is a bad agency. I don't think they're bad people. I just think they're not willing to admit that something was wrong and that there's a lot of learning that can be done here. And hopefully that opportunity happens. So I do this daily. This is what I do for a living. And I can tell you right now that in a missing persons case, the first thing every agency needs to do is put their logo on a flyer and acknowledge this as a missing persons case. How we got involved in this case was the family was begging for people to report on it. They were upset because they couldn't get it reported on. Well, a lot of people think people are missing when they're really not, or it's not really an active investigation. And so just getting them to even acknowledge, well, Mr. Dumas went missing on the 15th. It was figured out on the 16th when they found his vehicle. He was reported on the 17th. He didn't get listed into NamUs, which is the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. It's a government system. Until December 26th, I think a press release came out and said this, that, they did it a little earlier. It went live on the 26th. We organized a search of over 50 people, and it seemed like we were going to get some assistance from them. We organized that search throughout Tennessee and the areas of where the phone pinged and where his car was located. And the only authorities we saw when we were there were state troopers that showed up as soon as we got there and tried to get us to stop. So they must have known we were coming and we didn't tell them. So, they've tried to stop the family. They've even used profane statements at the family to describe the family's relaying of information. And I also want to acknowledge the information that's circulating around on social media. The family can't speak to the validity of that information. What we can say is that we shared it with investigators. We didn't share it with anybody else. We didn't share it in the first place. It was shared with the family. So to use profane language towards the family about, their part of this investigation, well, they had every right. They knew something was wrong. And I would like for everyone to ask yourself, if your family member went missing, would you talk to people? Would you ask people if they knew anything? Of course you would.
There's not a handbook of how to carry yourself if somebody that you love disappears. So yes, we may be emotional. We're sleepless. So we just want answers. Or if, there aren't answers out there that have not been discovered at this time, just a little bit of reassurance and not to be told, well, people just walk away.
Shakira's right when she says there's no handbook for families, but there is a standard operating procedures for police departments, and those need to be updated in this city, as far as I'm concerned.
Have any of you been able to see the information on the suspects so far? Do you recognize any of the names?
As he stated, some of the names that are in this release, we had already, with the help of our private investigator, we had already located those people, and when we located those names, we did send that over to HPD and also to the FBI.
We had not located those people. We had
The
learned of their names
and their
possible
background.
Did you guys, you recognize the names, did you guys know them prior?
No.
And we don't believe Mr. Dumont did either.
Mm-mm.
I think anybody in this town could have ended up in this situation.
You said February 28th was that 10K. There was the deadline for the 10K. Correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
At this time.
Yeah. And just going back to what you just said, you guys are family members. You guys just want them home. Can you talk about as a family member, just kind of not having the communication you guys want from HPD, just so you guys can get your loved one back home? Can you talk about how difficult that has been as a family member for you guys?
It's extremely difficult, and then this situation is a little complicated because Ronnie's not originally from Huntsville, Alabama. He's originally from Chicago. He moved here to go to college, and he built a family here. So his first blood relatives here are his children. So what we've tried to do is be a voice for him, for our children, because could you imagine having to tell your child your dad was abducted, your dad has possibly been murdered, or whatever the case may be? It's difficult. It's a very difficult situation, and we just want answers at this point.
Do your conversations change at all approaching that with the children now that this is officially confirmed to be an abduction? How do you handle that?
Well, her daughters are 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So that's something that she will have to determine how she'll have that conversation. My son is 12. Even without saying anything to my son or even to her daughters, they know that they speak to their dad every day. Even if they don't see their dad every day, they speak to him every day. So it's extremely noticeable on their behalf to go from talking to somebody every single day to now I haven't talked to them for 54 days.
My daughter walks around with her dad picture, goes to sleep with it, sets it up by her bed so that she can look at it while she is asleep.
Yeah.
She's 4.
So at this point, we are trying to be delicate with them in our wording because this could be detrimental.
Yes.
So we are trying to be gentle with them and trying to protect them as much as possible. But at the same time, they need to know the truth.
And they need closure. They need it. We don't want to keep, well, baby, he will come home. We don't know. He needs to come home.
Mm-hmm.
If you
In
know
any
something,
shape
please
or
say
form that it
something.
may be.
Please, because we need to wrap this up for our children.
We work very closely with the family as well to help encourage them to deliver information to the kids, to be honest with them, in small doses. That way when this information came, that it wasn't so much of an impact. And I believe over 54 days, it's become very relevant in their minds. And this family has a long road ahead of them. Justice is not a quick thing, but just standing here in this room today is huge progress. But we don't have him back yet, and that's the one thing we really need is his location, where he is right now.
So part of the new information that was put out today is that, investigators have kind of narrowed it to maybe a 450-mile radius. Does that kind of give you guys hope that, it's getting closer to maybe getting some of those answers that you guys have been waiting for so long?
I would say I am hopeful in the fact that the narrative has changed. but I'm not really sure about the radius because we don't have a timeline. We don't know what occurred. Also, we don't know for sure if he did ever leave Huntsville. So we don't know if he's possibly here or somewhere between here and Memphis or Mississippi.
Yeah, this investigation stretches over 3 states. It's a multi-jurisdictional situation, and while it does have federal authorities on it, which is very helpful, I would like to also mention that the family was instrumental in bringing in federal investigators and and all that with the FBI. They met with the FBI some while back themselves and initiated that meeting on their own. Not speaking for when HPD made their first contact with FBI or U.S. Marshals, but the family really has